Good day and welcome to this short recording on reversal of adjustments. I'm looking forward to sharing a few thoughts on this with you. We need to keep in mind that the reversal of adjustments form part of the basic accounting process, and it happens after the year-end process at the start of every financial year. So we're going to be focusing on reversal of adjustments just before we start with the occurrence of transactions. I just need, for example purposes, start at the adjustment process. So we're going to start over there, and then I'm going to take you through until we get to the occurrence of transactions of the new financial year. In my example, we've recorded in the insurance account an annual premium, annual means for 12 months, paid on the 31st of October 2019, and the amount that we've paid it for is 7,200. On our timeline, if we have a look at the end of the financial year, which in this case was the 31st of December 2019, if we've made our payment over here on the 31st of October 2019, that means that we've paid an annual premium for the next 12 months, stretching to 31st of October 20.20. This means that 2 of these months of the premium for 12 months belongs to this current financial year, while 10 months is already prepaid for the next financial year. If I then calculate my adjustment at the end of the year, I would have to take 10 out of the 12 months as prepaid expenses multiplied with the 7,200, and that will give me an adjusting entry of 6,000 Rand. The journal entry for that would be a debit in prepaid expense and a credit in the insurance expense account. So I'm taking out the amount at the end of the current financial year that has not been incurred for the current financial year. In my insurance expense account, I had a total of 7,200. I need to deduct from that the 10 months, that is a prepaid expense of 6,000, and that will correspond with the debit entry in the prepaid expense asset account of 6,000 Rand. If we now go over to the closing process after adjustments for the same example, in my insurance account, I've got the payment for the 12 months on the debit side. I've made the adjusting entry on the credit side for the 10 months. So now I can close off, in other words, form part of my calculation of profit or loss, the 2 months that actually belongs to this financial year. So I've only had the benefit of the insurance cover for 2 months during the current financial year. If we then calculate the closing transfer, the 7,200 paid for 12 months minus the 6,000 10 months paid in advance gives me 1,200 Rand that I can close off out of the insurance account towards the profit or loss account for the closing transfer. How would this be portrayed in the financial statements for 2019? In my statement of profit or loss and other comprehensive income for this current financial year, under my other expenses, I will have only the 1,200 incurred insurance expense for the current financial year. In the statement of financial position, I will have a current asset, a prepaid expense of 6,000 Rand. Current asset, which can be utilized in the future. It gives me the right to economic benefits due to a past event. Now the important part. Before we can start with the occurrence of transactions in the 2020 financial year, the first thing that we will have to do is reverse last year's adjustment. I'm going to prove to you why it is necessary in a minute. So at the start of the 2020 year, you'll see we'll start with the asset account of 6,000 in the prepaid expense and no entries in the expense account because we have not yet incurred any expenses for the 2020 financial year on the 1st of January 2020. If I now have to prepare the insurance account for the year ended 31 December 2020, and I again made my insurance premium payment, annual payment, but now it amounted to 8,400 on the 31st of October, we will have to start at the start of the financial year to do the fixing for the 2020 year. Because on the 1st of January, I'm going to start off with a 10 months prepaid insurance. Remember, I've made that payment over here already in the previous financial year, October, which I paid for the 2020 year. So that when I make my payment on the 31st of October 2020, I've adjusted to include the expense incurred for the first 10 months of the financial year. So to reverse last year's adjustment for the 6,000 Rand, I will have to take it out of the asset account. So credit the prepaid expense with 6,000 and debit the insurance account with the 6,000. I started off with a prepaid expense asset on the debit side. Now I'm reversing it out. So I'm going to credit the asset and I'm going to transfer that back into the insurance account on the debit side. So that when I make the payment on the 31st of October of the 12 months, remember only 2 of this 12 belongs to the current financial year now. This 10 months I've already paid in the 2019 financial year. If you have a look at the insurance account now, I've had a reversal for 10 months. I made the payment for 12 months on the 31st of October. But of the 12 months, I again have a prepaid expense now for the next 10 months. So I need to take that 10 months out of the insurance expense account again and transfer it to the prepaid expense. So that I can again have my closing transfer of the correct 12 months, which will include 10 months at the 600 Rand per month, and only 2 months, which is the 12 over here, minus the 10 prepaid expense over here. So that will give me the 2 months at 700 Rand a month, and that will constitute my closing transfer to the profit or loss account. In my prepaid expense account, which I don't close off but I balance, I will have a balance carried over brought down of 7,000 Rand. Can you see if I did not do the reversal, I would not end up with only 7,000 Rand. This is what it would look like if I did not do a reversal. Can you see I don't have the reversal of the prepaid expense adjustment of the previous year? If I didn't do the reversal, I would have had 12 months payment in this year minus the 10 that I've prepaid. So I would only account for 2 months worth of insurance. And that is not true. I've incurred the expense, or I've had the benefit of the insurance cover for the full 12 months. If I did not reverse the adjustment, can you see there's no reversal? I would have started off with a prepaid expense of 6,000 plus another prepaid expense of 7,000, leaving me with prepaid expenses for 20 months. And that is not true. That's the reason why, if we can just quickly run through the process and the need for the reversal of last year's adjustment, I would start off only with the balance in the asset account. Step 1 would be reverse last year's adjustment. So I reverse it back to the insurance account. Step 2 would be account for the payments made during this financial year. So I made one payment. Then we get into our closing process again. So closing process, do your adjustments. Number 3, adjustments, so that I can go over into closing off the correct amounts to the profit or loss. Let me just refer you to the closing, the adjustment over there that will influence my prepaid expense. So, which adjustments will we have to reverse at the start of every financial year? In our example, we had prepaid expenses that we reversed. Expenses payable will have to be reversed back into the expense account. The same treatment for income receivable and income received in advance. And then we will also have to reverse back our consumable inventories that we've taken to the asset account back into the expense account. Because remember, you are not going to buy new stationery if you still have stationery left in the cupboard. Now you've also been taught another number of adjustments, but they do not need reversal. And those include depreciation, because remember the definition of depreciation is systematically allocating the value of the asset away from assets into usage, into expense. So if I've used the asset, I can't reverse it. So depreciation won't be reversed. Allowance for credit losses will not be reversed, but it would rather be adjusted at the end of every financial year to suit the entity's debt profile at that point in time. The inventory deficit, which we calculate with the perpetual inventory system, will also not be reversed at the start of a new financial year, because this deficit has been incurred in the previous financial year and cannot be reversed at the start of the new financial year. I trust that you find this in order. Reversal of adjustments will definitely be dealt with again in the second semester of FRK 111.